Chapter 5. What Remains Unsaid. Echoes of the Broken Crown. Chapter 5. What Remains Unsaid. Arjun's summer arrived with heat, dust, and an endless stream of reconstruction reports. The kingdom was improving. Not dramatically. Not in ways that inspired songs. But measurably. Road travel times had decreased. Food shortages were less frequent. Trade revenue had begun recovering. The changes were small enough that most citizens likely noticed them only indirectly. That was usually how successful infrastructure worked. When things functioned properly, people rarely thought about them. Arjun preferred it that way. Attention often complicated good work. The capital had changed as well. Market districts felt busier. Construction projects no longer dominated every conversation. People spoke cautiously about the future. Not just survival. The future. The distinction mattered. One afternoon, while reviewing provincial budgets, he found himself unexpectedly distracted. A dangerous habit. One he normally avoided. The cause sat across from him. Princess Elara leaned over a map, studying transportation routes. A lock of dark hair had escaped its usual arrangement. She appeared completely unaware of it. Arjun looked back down at his notes. The reaction annoyed him slightly. Not because attraction itself was a problem. Because he preferred understanding things clearly. For months, his regard for her had been straightforward. Respect. Admiration. Concern. Now something else existed alongside those feelings. Quiet. Persistent. Impossible to ignore entirely. He recognized it immediately. That did not mean he intended to act on it. Quite the opposite. Elara's recovery mattered. The stability she had built mattered. The trust between them mattered. Complicating any of those things recklessly would be selfish. So he did what he had done for most of his adult life. He acknowledged the feeling. Accepted its existence. Then continued working. Elara, the nightmares had decreased. Not disappeared. Decreased. Master Corvin considered this progress. Elara agreed. Though she remained suspicious of celebrating too early. Recovery seemed to operate according to its own rules. Good weeks sometimes preceded difficult ones. Periods of confidence occasionally dissolved without warning. Still, the pattern had improved. 3 nightmares this month. Instead of 8. Fewer panic episodes. Better sleep. More moments where she felt present instead of merely functioning. The changes were real. The realization frightened her more than she expected. Because improvement implied hope. And hope carried risk. Arjun, their garden walks continued. Mostly because neither suggested stopping. The palace gardens occupied a large section of the inner grounds. Paths wound through carefully maintained greenery. Fountains provided background noise. Flowering trees offered shade during warmer months. It had become one of the few places where Elara seemed genuinely relaxed. Not entirely. Never entirely. But closer. One evening they followed a familiar path along the western wall. The conversation drifted naturally from politics to history. Then from history to childhood. An unusual transition. Arjun noticed it immediately. Elara rarely discussed personal memories. Not because she refused. Because she seldom volunteered them. My younger brother hated lessons. The statement arrived unexpectedly. For a moment she looked surprised by her own words. Then continued. He once convinced 3 tutors that he'd fallen ill. Arjun smiled. Did it work? For almost an entire week. A faint smile touched her face. He was extremely proud of himself. The smile faded slowly. Not abruptly. Not painfully. Just naturally. Silence followed. Arjun let it remain. Eventually she spoke again. I don't talk about them often. The them required no clarification. Her siblings. Her family. The people she had lost. You don't have to. I know. A pause. But I wanted to. Something about the admission felt important. Not because it was dramatic. Because it wasn't. Trust often revealed itself in ordinary moments. The decision to share a memory. The choice to remain present afterward. The confidence that the conversation wouldn't become overwhelming. Those things mattered. Elara, the garden walk, lingered in her thoughts afterward. Not because she had discussed her brother. Because of how the conversation had unfolded. Or rather, how it hadn't. Lord Vale hadn't tried to redirect her grief. Hadn't searched for silver linings. Hadn't insisted on focusing on happy memories. He simply listened. The simplicity of that still surprised her. Many people viewed pain as a problem requiring immediate correction, as though sadness itself represented failure. Corvin often disagreed. Grief, the healer insisted, wasn't something to solve. It was something to carry. The burden could become lighter. The shape could change. But pretending it didn't exist rarely helped. Lord Vale seemed to understand that instinctively. Arjun several weeks later, political pressure intensified. This time publicly. A coalition of nobles formally proposed reopening marriage negotiations. The discussion dominated council meetings, correspondence, private conversations, rumors. Predictably, Elara hated every minute of it. Not visibly. Years of practice prevented visible reactions. Still, the signs existed. Tighter posture, less sleep, shorter patience. Arjun recognized them. So did several others. Unfortunately, recognizing a problem and solving it were different things. The issue wasn't entirely unreasonable. That made it harder. The nobles weren't trying to hurt her. Most genuinely believed they were protecting the kingdom. Intentions, however, did not erase consequences. Elara, the discussion reached its worst point during a council session near the end of summer. A senior lord spent nearly 20 minutes explaining the political benefits of marriage. Alliance security, trade advantages, dynastic stability. Every argument sounded logical. Every argument felt exhausting. By the time the meeting ended, her head hurt. She escaped as quickly as protocol allowed. The panic didn't arrive immediately. That was unusual. Usually she recognized the signs early. This time they emerged gradually. A tightening chest. Shallow breathing. The familiar sensation of being trapped. She stopped in an empty corridor. Closed her eyes. Counted breaths. Focused on the present. The techniques worked better these days. Not perfectly. Better. Footsteps approached. Her eyes opened automatically. Lord Vale. Of course. He slowed immediately, taking in the situation. The difference between now and several months ago struck her unexpectedly. He didn't ask if she was all right, because both of them knew she wasn't. Instead, would you like company? The question carried the same quiet respect as the one he had asked in the library. Choice. Always choice. She nodded. Yes. So they walked. No destination. No agenda. Just walking. The palace gardens eventually appeared ahead. The evening air felt cooler outside. Easier to breathe. For several minutes neither spoke. Then Elara exhaled slowly. I hate that they might be right. The words escaped before she could stop them. Arjun remained silent. Waiting. Not pushing. She appreciated that. The political arguments. Another breath. Some of them are reasonable. They are. His agreement surprised her. Most people either dismissed her concerns or intensified them. Rarely both. She glanced toward him. You agree. With some of the political logic. A pause. Not necessarily with the pressure. The distinction mattered. A great deal. You don't have to choose between acknowledging reality and protecting yourself. She stared ahead. The statement settled somewhere deep. Because she had spent years believing exactly that. That every difficult decision required sacrificing something essential. That duty and well-being existed in opposition. Perhaps sometimes they did. Not always. Arjun, they stopped near a fountain. The water created a soft, steady sound. Grounding. Predictable. Elara looked tired. Not physically. Emotionally. The kind of exhaustion that accumulated over years. For a moment he considered saying more. Offering advice. Perspective. Anything. Instead he remained quiet. Because she didn't need solutions. She needed space. Eventually she spoke. Corvin says I've improved. You have. Her gaze shifted toward him. How can you tell? The answer came easily. You trust people more. A faint frown. Only a few. A few is more than none. The observation seemed to catch her off guard. She looked away. The fountain continued flowing. Summer sunlight reflected across the water. After a long silence, she asked, "Do you ever think recovery has an end point?" The question surprised him. Arjun considered it carefully. Finally, he answered, "No." She waited. "I think some things become easier." A pause. "I think some scars stop hurting as often." Another pause. "But I don't think healing means becoming the person you were before." His voice remained thoughtful. "I think it means building a life around what's left." The words hung between them. Neither moved. Neither spoke. Because both understood the truth inside them. Elara had lost too much to become who she had been. And perhaps that was not the goal. Perhaps the goal was something quieter. Something more realistic. Learning how to live fully despite the losses. Not because they disappeared. Because life continued. The evening sun drifted lower across the garden. Eventually, they resumed walking. Neither noticed how naturally their pace matched. Or perhaps they noticed and simply chose not to mention it. Some truths required time before they could be spoken aloud. And for now, silence remained enough. End of chapter 5.